That's from the January 9th meeting.
Motion.
Sal,
Second.
Sid, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, public comment. None. All right. So we'll start, the next item on the agenda is a presentation from the Career Development Center with Director Toby Hay.
Thank you.
Hi, Toby. Thank you for coming.
I have to move the slides for me. So yes, so I'm Toby. I'm the director of the Career Development Center. I just have a few slides to share with you what we do and how we do it, and invite everyone to engage however makes the most sense for you. I always like to start with our mission. It's really as appropriate at the core of what we do. It helps us prioritize to educate and empower students, of course, toward meaningful careers and lifelong professional success. This last part is really important. Engaging the campus, alumni, and employer communities as our partner. I have a small but mighty team. We have an assistant director in Morgan Pellerin. We have a senior counselor, career counselor in Sally Urban. Our office assistant is Diane DeLong. And then this semester we have an undergraduate intern. I'm super excited to work with. Allison works with her as well. And we have two student office assistants, about 7 hours a week. Carry out our mission and beyond. As you all know, career development and career planning is not a one-time activity, doesn't happen overnight. We really try and engage with students as early as possible in their time at SUNY Plattsburgh. Sometimes that means before they're even on campus, through their on-campus job search, for example. So some career development centers do not have anything to do with on-campus employment, but we do. We kind of facilitate that process. We help employers on campus post those positions and help students find those positions. And we really like that. We see that as a real benefit, as a way to meet the students as early as possible, so that then maybe the following year when they're thinking about an internship or they're thinking about changing their major, they may already know where to find us. So, but we do support them from the very all the way through and then beyond. So we do support alumni as well. And these are some of the way that we work with students and alumni. How about, to be clear, is mostly overwhelmingly students. So workshops, mock interviews. We do mock interviews and interview preparation in a couple of different ways. Students can come in with us and do a formal mock interview. We will role play the employer for about 20 to 30 minutes and then give them some feedback. But we also have a wonderful tool called Big Interview, which is a web-based, video-based mock interview tool. So increasingly, I mean, nearly every first round interview today is by video or phone, but mostly video. So it's turned out to be a great resource. And so students can go in, faculty can assign these as well, but any student can go in and do a practice interview where they can choose maybe an internship or an entry-level position. They could actually choose an interview that's based on a job competency too, if they wanted to. And then when they start the process, somebody has already recorded themselves asking the question. So they hit go, they see somebody say, oh, well, thank you for coming in. Walk me through your resume. And then the student hits record and records their answer. So at the end, and they can do that as many times as they want. So it helps them kind of polish and see themselves, hear themselves. And at the end, if they want to share that recording with somebody for feedback, they can. Right now, applications are due. Understand kind of the steps in the process, maybe how to find graduate programs. What we're spending a lot of time on right now is just giving them feedback on their essays, their personal statements. So we all really enjoy that process. And now they're starting. So some of the deadlines are like this week, you know, they haven't quite come yet, but other programs are actually telling us that they're in already. So we're doing some good news. So that's always fun. We do this a couple of different ways, 3 different ways actually. So students can come in during our walk-in hours. We have walk-ins every day, Monday through Friday, for a quick, 5 to 10 minute question, quick look at their resume. But they can also do this through appointments where they want to sit down and really spend more time with us, or they could do this through our career portal called Handshake. So anytime a student uploads their resume because they want to apply for a position in Handshake, somebody from our office looks at their materials and offers them feedback. And we implement that to collect data on our most recent graduates to find out where they are, what they're doing, salary information. And then also it's a great way for us to let them know that we're still here for them if they're still searching. And so these are some of our most visible events that we each year. A part-time job fest is usually the first week of classes in August. So this is a way, again, to get those brand new students to campus and to, figure out how to use Handshake, how to learn what the process is on campus for finding employment. Increasingly, with the job market right now and employment challenges, local employers want to actually come and physically attend the event. So that 10 to 15 employers number keeps going up and up because they really need people. They want to, it's worth it for them to spend 2 hours on campus getting in front of students to help them find some folks. 30th, so we're getting ready for that. We have 55 employers registered right now. We're really proud of the diversity of employers that we get, nonprofits to government agencies, to businesses, really try to appeal to all of our students. We really try and get all of our class years to come as well, even first year students, even though it's a bit daunting. My intern is helping us rebrand it. So we're still calling it the career fair externally, but internally it's going to be the job fest this year because she thought that just sounds, I think, more fun, right? Less intimidating. The Applied Learning Grants, this is a really great one. Hopefully you're familiar with it, but thanks to the support of the College Foundation, $1,000 a year, depending on the budget, to support students in whether it's it could be an unfunded or underfunded internship, it could be travel to a conference, any number of things that really support their career planning. And so we have an additional $15,000 this year through the SUNY funds that came. So that's really been very exciting. The students have to apply for it. They have to submit a budget, they have to explain how it ties to their applied learning and their career exploration. And then we have an annual learning grant showcase where students have to, a handful of them are invited to actually present on their experience. Others just do a poster presentation, but the idea is that they have to put some time and reflection into that experience and then be ready to talk to folks like us about it and faculty and staff. Career events, you might notice there's a few presentations. Increasingly though, we really try and get into the classroom and to partner with student leaders. Internship presentation the other day, just a standalone, nobody came. So we are much better off partnering with faculty in the classroom and with student leaders. And that's worked much better. So for example, the American Marketing Association, Student Accounting and Finance Association, there's a bunch of them that will actually ask us to come in and talk about resumes and LinkedIn internships. So we do that as much as we possibly can. Nationwide, but locally they do, they stay open just for our students on a Sunday evening where they offer deep discounts on professional attire. So we do this in the fall, we do it in the spring, usually close to the career fair so that students can be ready for that. But then they also use it for other, even fraternity and sorority events and other special occasions. And that complements our career closet really well. So our career closet is a room in the Angel College Center where we feature free donated work professional attire for students to come and take as they need them for interviews, for internships, for that special presentation. Sometimes it's even fraternity events that they all have to have a certain color on for. Those two events go really well together, those two items. And then finally, employers are expose students to what's out there in the work world. And it's actually benefits employers too these days as they're trying to brand themselves among students and kind of build a recruiting pipeline. So we've done a handful. We did several really before COVID. We've done one in the past year. This semester we're doing 5. So we're really bringing them back and using some of those applied learning funds that we have to support that. Those are funds that are separate from the grants that individual donors have given. So Bionique in Saranac Lake is our first one. It's full. We have 10 students that signed up, so we're really excited about that. And Starex, Schluter Systems is and the Howard Center in Burlington. We haven't been there before, so I'm excited about that one. And then the New York State Police in Raybrook. Those are all happening this semester. We have this is some of our key resources. And also, Handshake is a large vendor in this career portal space, works with thousands of colleges and universities in the country. So they're really good at what they do, and they're familiar to employers, especially who recruit in multiple places. So employers post openings. So even our on-campus employers will post openings through Handshake. So whether it's an on-campus job, an internship, a full-time job, sometimes volunteer opportunities, students know to look in Handshake. And then employers can host events, virtual events, and they can advertise on campus. I think last week, Deutsche Bank had a presentation. The Federal Reserve Board has one coming up. Mayo Clinic is doing a presentation on resumes for nursing students. So it's there's just a handful of good things that may have come out of COVID. This is one of them for us, is that employers had to figure out how to engage virtually, and they seem to be sticking with it. So employers that don't traditionally come to SUNY Plattsburgh, they can do these virtual sessions, and it really gives our students more opportunities. Shift is another one of our key resources to look for opportunities. Candid career videos. We are constantly trying to get students to do what we call informational interviews. You may have all done an informational interview throughout your career, where you actually talk to someone who's maybe doing the type of work you're interested in. What we love about it is that it's student driven. So students get to be asking the questions. And you can just learn so much about a particular job, things you can't necessarily read from a website. So, but as you might imagine, students can be hesitant to reach out to strangers for things like informational interviews. So candid. So their videos are like 7 minutes long. They're really short, easy way to what I like to think of as just it's a warm up to actually doing the interview yourself. So hundreds of different interviews to choose from. You can search by career field or job title. They have different job search topics too. Our career diversity resources website, something we're really proud of. It came from us wanting students, underrepresented students specifically, see themselves more in the world of career exploration and job search, and a lot of the resources that are out there, they don't see themselves. So our student employees at the time, our peer career assistants, created this resource, and we continued to maintain it for several years. We're always looking for ways to give it more visibility, and really hoping our intern and through collaboration with Allison's office can help us with that this year. So there are different topics you'll find on this website. So whether it's African Americans, women, veterans, lots of different populations. And within each of those, there's consistent links to laws, publications, professional associations, job postings, scholarships. So it's a resource we're pretty proud of. Of course, this came out of COVID, as everybody else was. We were pivoting pretty quickly in the spring of 2020, trying to figure out, really as a campus, there's some one credit courses that were in person that students, or not so much that they were in person, but the online, that's what it was, the shift to online learning, students might be dropping classes more than usual, and they're going to need to pick up another credit to complete that semester. So we get about 25 students each semester, mostly juniors and seniors. So I think that Morgan Pellerin teaches this. Per year, but it's a group of employers. Really make sure that we're staying current with what's happening in hiring practices. So we get to ask them questions like, how's the interviewing going? You know, or so your new hires the past year or two, how are they doing? What are the gaps? You know, are they hitting the ground running? Are their resumes atrocious? Just please tell us what we should be working on. But sure that our ears to the ground on how we can be as strong of a partner as possible with helping them meet their employer, their recruitment. We try to have multiple industries represented there. All right. You know, what students use us, what do they use us for? So again, it's hard for us to really measure all the ways students engage with us because they go to events, they come see us for multiple things, but this is 3 areas. So walk-ins and appointments. And so again, I mentioned the walk-ins. Appointments are scheduled for an hour. We really try and see students who are doing a search, or whether it's for an internship or a full-time job, or maybe they're thinking about changing their major, declaring their major, or choosing a minor. So we want to see them through appointments where we can really spend some time with them. But probably not surprising. Seniors, and then it kind of goes down from there, except first years surpass the sophomores pretty consistently. And I think that's actually consistent beyond career development. I think a lot of services on campus, the sophomores are always kind of a extra challenge to reach. Career fair. Try to really be intentional about student learning outcomes for the fair. Kind of boiled it down most recently to, we want students who attend to, number one, you know, after they've been in that room, and then also more informed about what's out there, what's available to them in particular industries or the types of systems. And then finally, handshake users you can see. See us. This is the main 2 spots that we're in the office. There is in room 118, and then the career class that I mentioned is up on the 3rd floor. I included in the materials a list of upcoming career events. I hope you'll all feel welcome to any of those, or engage with us anytime you have a desire to get in front of students, or you just have a question for my team. Heather?
You keep track of, say, when a student's graduating, how many have jobs and salaries, that type of thing?
We do. That's our first destination survey. So what we do is we collect data after they've been out. Each graduating class has been out for 6 months. So, you know, what are they doing? What is their salary and where they are? So
How long have you been doing that?
ooh, maybe 20. And not yeah. I mean, 2016. It's not.
Is there any trend?
yes, but since 2020, we've been on the rebound. So for example, I think what we do and what most schools do is we take the number of students who are working in a number of different ways or are engaged, either working part-time, full-time, maybe they're in the military, they're in graduate school, that's a separate one. Or maybe they're volunteering. And last year, I think it was about maybe 89%, and this year it's closer to 92. So that's gone up. The salary's gone up this year too. The average, I mean, I haven't shared this with the president or the cabinet, so it's coming. We literally just got done collecting the data.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, more to come on. Sorry.
So Hannah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. You mentioned internships a couple times, and I thank you for that. I'm a product of an internship on my career trajectory, and realizing that it is tough to, see what's out there from an internship perspective, in addition to like open jobs and that career track. But still wondering if there's a way that we can aggregate some sort of internship postings. I find that is very much, internships tend to be sort of incumbent on the student, and it's tough to know like what's out there. So is there a way to sort of aggregate availability, particularly amongst state agencies and authorities, where we all sort of share? I work for a public authority. We have internships available all year round, paid internships. The New York Power Authority has them, as well as, in the legislature. So I guess maybe more of a statement rather than a question to say that, again, a student might not. I'll give you an example. I reached out to the mayor's office here in the city of Plattsburgh, and I started my internship there. But I reached out to the mayor's office. No one said it was available. No one said there was one available, or even whom to contact. I did that myself. So maybe another layer of support in that regard. My second point that was, you mentioned LinkedIn, and I was wondering if there's anything done sort of on the inverse of that, and that is how social media can negatively impact your career trajectory.
Yeah, so we do a couple of things. So Handshake is really our centralized place for internship postings, by the way. So anybody who wants to get a word out about internships to our students, it goes into Handshake, and we send information to students regularly. Every 10 days, for example, we're sending students, and we can break it down by certain populations too, by major, for example, or by class year. We will let them know about maybe internships of interest, events of interest, recruiting things that are happening. And they also do get, depending on the department, they do get emails from their faculty too and their advisors. As alums, for example, they reach back out to their academic department, let them know, hey, we're hiring, because those kinds of messages coming from faculty go a long way. So yeah, we do try and educate students about the pitfalls of social media as well. Yeah, I think there's less work to do there now than there were even a few years ago. I think they've seen some public examples of how that's gone bad, but yeah.
I agree. I think it's more now how to leverage these services to your advantage. We all know how to do it, right? But is there keywords, phrases, tags, things like that to incorporate,
right,
post or whatever that could get you greater visibility?
And sometimes students don't connect the dots. So for example, I'll say to a class, okay, so how many of you are we're talking about job search. So what are you using to find your jobs? And they'll say, oh, LinkedIn. Then I'll say, okay, so how many of you are active on LinkedIn? And they're first thing employers are going to do when you apply through LinkedIn is look at your profile. So your profile needs to be really good if you're actually to apply for those positions. So yeah, there's a lot of education to be done there.
I'm interested in two items that you presented. The graduate school that you invited. Legal school, nursing school, or a business school.
Yeah, we try and have a real mix. So medical, law, business, public health. We try and get as many different types.
State universities or private?
I'm sorry?
They are state or private universities?
Oh, both. It's a
Both.
mix. Yeah.
The students are interested in those
Yeah,
graduates.
the graduate school fair is a challenge every year, honestly, to get students to attend. But it is part of what we need to do in our field is to educate them on what the opportunities are, not just employment wise, but graduate school wise. So it's something that we're always kind of playing with. How can we make this more appealing to students? Can we get them to engage earlier and realize that waiting until, fall of your senior year, you may have missed the opportunity to learn even earlier what's out there and kind of prepare for it. But we have about, I think we have 200 student attendance here.
Okay, and when they apply to graduate schools, do you know how many are accepted?
Oh, I do not have that. No.
Okay.
I do not. One thing we do collect through that first destination data, though, is the types of degrees that they're getting, not the acceptance rates, but you can see, what percentage are in master's programs, and a surprising number go to doctorate programs too. Some go to other bachelor's programs, like maybe an accelerated nursing.
Toby, I'm curious, are you seeing a fair percentage of ghosting with students participating and signing up for interviews or things either through the Career Development Center or, opportunities that you've kind of helped them connect with? Because post-college, a lot of our career folks are saying that people are just not showing up for things that are set up for them. So I'm wondering if you're seeing it during the college experience.
I'm not hearing that our students in particular are doing that, but when I do meet with our employer relations advisory group, and some of those employers don't recruit necessarily from SUNY Plattsburgh or alums from SUNY Plattsburgh, but they might go after programs that we don't have. I do hear it from them that yes, that's quite common, that just getting candidates to show up. Even some of we have an alum on the group that works for Bloomberg. And they booked flights and bought plane tickets and they still didn't show up. So, yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
One more question. Course that you offer.
Yes.
I remember Dr. Slish from the biological department.
Yeah.
He offers like one credit course, introduce students to health.
Yeah, it does.
Professional programs. Do you work with Dr. Slish?
We do a little bit. I mean, he shares, he has a list of literally, he shares that with us and says it's open to all, and you don't have to be taking his class to show up if you want to hear a particular presenter, and we're welcome to attend as well as staff. But he really, he invites his own speakers and, runs the class itself.
I am graduated from nursing program here. When I was a student, I didn't know that he offered that program.
Okay.
So I recommend that you need to encourage students that wants to go to graduate program, maybe to take this course.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's helpful, so they know whether they have the calling to be
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The more exposure they can have to a variety of fields, the better.
Those lines, and just to add to the discussion, Dr. Schlish recently started with a group of other people, an endowment to support students interested in going to med school. So it's basically specifically to provide assistance to students in the prep courses. In order to get into med
Yeah,
school,
because
because
that is important.
there's a real trend of students maybe not performing quite as well as they could because they didn't have the opportunity to do the prep course, which is expensive, very expensive.
That is important because you have to get like a certain score
Mhm.
to be accepted. Because usually medical school will not choose the one that is below that because they wouldn't pass the board exam. Spending 8 years of schooling and internship and then you don't get a job.
Right, yeah, even for non-medical programs, we're talking to students about. All right, here's what they're looking for, when they're reading your application, can you do the work? Do they want you there? You know, will you be a contributing member of their community? And then will you represent the profession well, when you graduate?
Thank you.
Just one quick, probably localized question. In your job fest and career fair, did the public schools come
Yes,
Yeah, 'cause
recently
they're
especially.
crying over lack
Yeah.
of even substitutes as aides, et cetera?
Yep.
They do, recent,
Yes, we do.
like this year.
Yes, we already have a few signed up for this one.
Good.
The superintendent from Salmon River keeps coming. I mean, he drives a long way and he said this exactly that we need bus drivers and we need teachers.
They need
and
everything, yeah, teacher aides, help with special education students. It's all paid positions. Yeah, so I hear a lot. Oh, no, no, there's not enough, and I'm just wanted to make sure that, wow, what a perfect place to try to pick up someone who might want to do quote an internship in a school system. You know, you can substitute a lot of those areas.
That,
Thank you.
that's a great connection, though, to what Sal was saying, because there was an article, I think, in the New York Times just recently that there is approximately a 23 or 27% retirement factor in New York State in the next couple of years, or also known as the great grain of government. And you don't want your, you know, your B level or C level individuals working on your water infrastructure or any infrastructure. I mean, and there's a on par for every government force in the private sector. So there could be some stuff that we could do with that.
I think our online MST offerings are going to be really helpful in helping
Yes.
make that
I'm
that
assuming,
option
do
more accessible.
you get calls from the schools?
Yes, we
Yes, I do.
Yeah, sometimes it's, you know, what recruiting events do you have coming up? Sometimes it's, we desperately need a math teacher. What do you got in the, you know, what's your enrollment look like? Sometimes like math and science, the enrollment's just not very high. You know, we can't say we have a huge class. Connect them directly to the academic department.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thanks, Toby.
Hey, that I ever even went to the Career Development Center when I was in college. They didn't do a very good job of outreach, not like this, so that's great.
We didn't have one.
Yeah, well,
1998.
well, maybe that's what it was. Maybe they didn't have.
I'm not telling you what year, we didn't have to. do it.
Okay, next up is Dr. Agnetti's President's Report.
First, this is an editorial comment to Toby's presentation. And as I mentioned to many of you, I enjoy walking campus and speaking with students. And there's a theme has emerged about employment. A lot of our nursing students who are in the final semester or entering the final year of their program here, they seem to all be employed. And not seem, they are employed, which is a high testament not only to the value of the program that we offer, but the demand that nursing has in the state. The interesting thing is many of them are going back to work in Long Island. Now, I know that's a whole other conversation that we want to address here in the North Country in terms of more local students becoming nurses and healthcare workers. Another area is our teachers, and two things. One is a tremendous love on this campus for the MST program, and that it provides that what I would call almost a 4+1 program that I think elevates the employability of these students. But they are also finding positions that are specific to their training And I also, I don't know, my sample size is really poor, but I meet many of our teachers that are interested in special needs and special education, and they're already being sought after as well. So I think it's to your point, Jim, it'd be nice to have inventory and be able to do longitudinal information about where our students are landing and how they're having careers. And in some ways, there's almost a backdoor way. We're as Ann Hansen and I go to our various events to meet with prospective donors and alums, we're starting to see a bifurcation. There's a group of alums who graduated perhaps 40, 50, 60 years ago, but we're starting to see a population of alums that graduated 5, 10, 15 years ago, and their career paths are very different. They've been in various jobs, and they're very excited about coming back and speaking to the current group of students, almost as a peer conversation about how their career path has gone. So I think that's one of the, I'll say, the epiphanies of being out there on the donor. I'll say, I don't want to call it the donor track, but really the donor hunt. So thanks, Ann, for that. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to provide a report. I'll just warn you up in advance, this is going to be comprehensive. That's code for something else, but it's a comprehensive report. Just need to acknowledge that there's been a transition in the leadership for representation on campus for CSEA. So Ethel Facto made the final decision to retire late January. And so Nancy Bennett will be our new representative for campus governance and will be on the College Council joining us and suspect in future meetings. She succeeded Nancy succeeded Ethel at the end of January. On the news front as well, not only are we a fast changing and dynamic institution, I received word earlier today that SUNY Plattsburgh has officially gained university status in New York State. This is something that we mentioned in College Council perhaps 1 and 2 times ago. A designation that really reflects the breadth of our undergraduate and graduate programs. Essentially, 11 out of the comprehensives that exist right now have the capacity to become universities. We're not the first. I think we're perhaps in the first 5 or 6 that have made this path forward. Again, the designation I just mentioned follows the approval in December by the SUNY Board of Trustees and a change in the Board of Regents policy earlier in 2022. And there will be a campus announcement that will go out just after today's meeting with the College Council, and a press release that will go to our local media as well. And again, accordingly, moving forward, SUNY Plattsburgh will be classified as a university and not a college for state and federal purposes. So I guess in some ways, if we had a little, there would be a little. So again, congratulations to SUNY Plattsburgh for the recognition that I would say very, very aptly deserves.
If I may, is there a thought of a name change, or are we still State University of New York?
So actually, I thought you might ask that, Sal. And so, and again, I want to make sure I read the proper name here, that I don't give it. There was a slight change, and Ken, I know he sent me this information a little bit earlier, but it appears that now Ken, I'm going to paraphrase and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Are we going to do this together? It was State University College at Plattsburgh. And now it's the State University at Plattsburgh?
So SUNY Plattsburgh, which runs on all the signs on the bottom of the PowerPoint, so it's still SUNY Plattsburgh. That's not changing. There are, for official purposes, we were the State University of New York College at Plattsburgh. We are now the State University of New York at Plattsburgh. Simply the word college has been, and as the president mentioned, because of the change in the Board of Regents policy, and because of the programs that we already offer, we meet the definition of university. This is more of a distinction among private colleges that were not able to be a university, and so it would be a college, and now it can be a university. And so for those that are able to do that, I think for the most perception of us, most people think we already are sort of affiliated with that, but that's the.
Yeah. So again, official designation SUNY Plattsburgh. So that does not change. although when this first came up as a conversation item, if you read through the documentation, we're also known as Plattsburgh State University. And that has kind of ebbed and flowed in terms of that PSU designation. There's a residual or a vestigial component to that. We have Plattsburgh State University Athletics. That lives on. We have the Plattsburgh State University Art Museum or PSAM. So there are components of Plattsburgh State that continue to live. So I think in this community, we never stopped being a university, and we've always been a university. So what's the change? But the point is it's more formal to recognize. And certainly if you look internationally, the word university means something very different if you're a student who's going to consider coming to the United States to study. The word college has a very different designation, even to the point where I grew up in Canada. The word college is reserved only for 2-year granting or a certificate or degree granting institutions. It's not ever used in a conversation with a university or sometimes folks like the uni. I mean, it's very much restricted to a 2-year program. So in terms of updates, 5 divisional updates were shared with you via email a week ago. I would say that marks a change in how we're going to continue doing business here with the College Council. Those reports were made available with the purpose of flipping the classroom rather than our VPs reading the reports. It's going to be a Q&A around those reports. So we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But this again will become part of our regular process as we prepare for our meetings. These reports in many ways are expanded versions of the monthly campus email updates that come from me, and I've been doing those since last year, that highlight on certain things such as student enrollment, our spending plan, and the implementation of the strategic plan. And from my perspective, these are an incredibly effective and transparent way to keep the campus collectively up to date on these, what I consider matters of high importance. Furthermore, I'm going to continue to meet with smaller on-campus stakeholder groups throughout the semester, and examples would be the department chairs of the Chairs Council, the Resources and Planning Committee, Senate Exec Committee, to discuss these topics and certainly our shared vision, as well as detailing these matters to a larger group such as the full Faculty Senate. And it's additional my hope to arrange for small group visits of 2 or 3 College Council members at one time on campus over the course of the semester, as well as possibly a summer retreat at the Valcor Inn with the cabinet. I think it's very important for you to remain connected to the heartbeat of this campus. And as you heard from Toby, and as you'll hear in a few moments, there are a lot of heartbeats that go on this campus every day, every week, and every month. So we'll be reaching out to you further to discuss this. And as we increase communications, I want you to know that you're always, first of all, welcome and encouraged to attend any campus activity and an event. I think seeing how things occur here, how successful we are, helps tell the story of this campus from the halls of Albany to your local neighborhoods. And I would simply say, in a nutshell, we have an incredible amount to share every day, every week, every month. So last Wednesday on February the 8th, our new Chancellor, Chancellor King, convened a Zoom meeting that was attended by campus presidents, campus government affairs liaisons, campus communications and marketing directors, and admissions/enrollment strategy management directors. Nearly 300 individuals participated in this meeting, and 2 important themes were covered. First of all is the development of the New York State budget for 23-24. And enrollment management strategies for the whole system. So on the topic of our state budget, SUNY is now going on a hard press to elevate advocacy for additional support for general fund operating expenses, including employee salaries. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. And I'm not going to steal Michelle Toth's thunder, but I suspect that Michelle may touch on that as well. On the topic of enrollment management, it was emphasized by the Chancellor that the student enrollment is our collective grand challenge. And to address this, SUNY Central is implementing tactics that will enhance student yield at every single SUNY campus and activating a new, and I like the way that this is being described as a cascading admissions process for fall of 23 that will redirect students to other SUNY campuses should they not receive an offer of admission at their declared first choice. And we can talk a bit about that in terms of what do our applications look like when we go into the Q&A. So with respect to enrollment at SUNY Plattsburgh, I want to share a few highlights from the report you received last week. As you know, growing and sustaining our enrollment is the very first pillar of our strategic plan, and that's at the very center of our long-term growth. I'm pleased to share that our spring 23 new student deposits are at 373, or 23 more than our expectation of 350. Our spring head count will be approximately 4,082 students, which is 77 above our projections, but still down 200 from 1 year ago. It is far too early right now to project the actual fall enrollment, but early signs are incredibly positive that we can also exceed our projected enrollment target for fall of 23. Our applications have been running at nearly 50% compared to 1 year ago, and acceptances are more than 40% compared to 1 year ago. The admissions office is working incredibly hard to maintain connections with these prospective students and continues to build on this very early momentum. Activities underway include 5 yield recruitment events during mid-March, more high school visits, frequent text messaging, and increased visits to Vermont feeder schools. On the topic of budget, the better than projected enrollment news I just shared for you about campus this fiscal year translates to increased revenue for our university over expectations. Our total billed tuition for fall, winter, and spring is approximately $735,000 over budget, or 2.24% above last year's projection. Increased recruitment and student retention ahead of it will take us further down the road to our Plattsburgh next goal of 4,800 students by the fall of 25. But I want to emphasize that this is no small undertaking. The headwinds facing public regional universities in our part of the country are relentless, and we have a lot of work to do to achieve that goal of 4,800 students. With respect to fall 23, to reach that target, we're going to need to accomplish 2 things simultaneously. We'll need to recruit 1,700 new students, which is a mix of graduate, transfer, international, and in-state recent high school graduates. And second, we need to retain 84 more students who are currently enrolled. And again, this appears within reach given to the large application pool and the many tools that we have or we're putting into place to enhance and track student progress and provide students supports and help that they need to be successful. In concert with this, all campus divisions continue to work on a combination of permanent and temporary spending reductions that will bring the overall budget into more long-term alignment. So far, 1.2 million of the 5.2 million target has been identified. Work on the 23-24 fiscal year budget continues through the semester and will be finalized on May 3rd when it is sent to SUNY for approval. As I mentioned earlier, this is also an important time with respect to the state budget. As we just earlier discussed, our long-term prosperity depends in large measure on consistent and growing state support that will allow us to maintain our numerous student services and grow our academic programs. Governor Hochul's executive budget contains some excellent news for this campus. This includes a proposed increase in the base support and greater contribution for employees' salary and benefits. New one-time dollars for digital technology upgrades were also added, as well as more capital construction dollars. The governor's budget also contains a proposal for a tuition increase of up to 3% for the comprehensive colleges/universities. However, this is just the very first stage in the state spending plan that will be completed in early April or late March. And what we heard on the large Zoom call a week ago is that this is being fast-tracked. So the goal is to have this complete by early April. And so as members of the College Council, I would encourage each of you to advocate through your own channels and take advantage of collective opportunities. I'm scheduled to meet with State Assemblyman Billy Jones this Thursday morning to emphasize the importance of the state's support to meet the mission and goals of SUNY Plattsburgh to serve students and also to serve the North Country. The budget process is the very first with new Chancellor John King. We expect to host a very short visit with Chancellor King during this spring semester, most likely after or just shortly after the state budget has been completed. I would appreciate College Council members being represented when Dr. King comes to Plattsburgh. So please anticipate an invitation to join us to meet with the new Chancellor. And to further emphasize the critical need for your advocacy, I want to draw your attention to 2 legislative bills that are moving their way through the Senate and through the Assembly. Bill S447A and Bill A3076. These are important bills because they will allow New York State nursing students to complete up to 30% of their required clinical work in a simulated environment. Nationally, we are facing a historic nursing shortage, and passage of the bill will support Governor Hochul's goal to increase New York's healthcare workforce by 20% within 5 years. Passage of this legislation will be a game changer for the state, but more specifically for SUNY Plattsburgh. And the provost and I have already been in conversations with our colleagues across the street at CVPH to talk a bit more about how we can even collaborate more in the area of supporting nursing students, but also in the area of possible financial support too. So more to come on that. On the topic of our strategic plan, advancement on our plan continues. I want to highlight a brand new webpage. It's plattsburgh.edu/next. And that particular link houses the campus's work and progress on the implementation of the plan. It contains links and charts and data that you may find helpful. And over the semester, our 13 campus accountability partners will be meeting to review progress, help me and cabinet set priorities, and make other suggestions for improvements and updates. The names of these campus leaders contributing to the effort are now included on the website. And in the realm of shared and transparent work, I'll be working with the provost and the faculty senate executive committee to have further conversations on shared governance. It's important for all campus leaders to be invested in this work and better understand each other, our roles, and our responsibilities. And I'm looking very much forward to these conversations. Unfortunately, Ray's not here, but Sandra Rizek will be part of that conversation too. On the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I want to draw attention to that area. Vice President Hurd is leading an active program that continues to grow and develop. She was the keynote speaker at the recent MLK Day Junior Community Celebration at the Newman Center, and the new diversity newsletter was produced and shared with campus, containing updates and details on programming ranging from our Equity Advocate program to assist with campus hiring to programming associated with Black History Month, which is happening right now. I encourage you to read these materials and participate in our numerous activities when you're able. The final category I want to touch upon is alumni and advancement. I will also be meeting with many alumni and donors over the course of the semester, along with Ann Hansen and her team. I'll be visiting Syracuse, Rochester, Southern Florida, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Atlanta. And that's just next week. No, I'm just kidding. But these are important connections to serve and extend our work and create new opportunities for students, faculty, and staff. Locally, I know that some of us will be joining us for a ceremony at Clinton Community College on Thursday morning for our new integrated degree programming in nursing. Under this new program, students will take coursework at Clinton Community College during the first 3 years, meeting the requirements to become a registered nurse with an associate's degree in applied science and nursing. As this occurs, it introduces classes at SUNY Plattsburgh at the point of admission to streamline a path from the RN AAS to a baccalaureate degree, Bachelor of Science in Nursing after the 4th year. So essentially, it's a 3+1 program. Students matriculate as Cougars and slowly become Cardinals as they pass through the system. Students also have the ability, who are in this program, to live on SUNY Plattsburgh's campus from the point of admission in year 1, which is a great opportunity for these students as well. And again, this partnership promotes collaboration between faculty at both of our institutions and local healthcare providers, and it supports nursing education in the North Country. So I'm very excited about where we are, what's happening on the campus, and where we are going. And thank you again for the opportunity to share this information this afternoon. I promised you there was a lot of heartbeats, and there are many heartbeats that are happening on the campus. And I'm happy to answer questions you may have and have this morph into our Q&A with respect to the reports that you received in advance of today's meeting. I yield the floor back to you, Heidi.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Dr. Agnetti right now?
I guess one question that I had is, we think, or what might be the impacts to Fed's monetary policy on interest rates that which might affect student loans? Or is there any correlation between those activities? And then how's that going to translate into student enrollment?
Well, every year, usually summertime, Feds reset the interest rates for the unsubsidized loans and subsidized student loans. So every year, so they've been tending to go up the last 3 or 4 years. They're really low for a while. When I first started, 7-8%, down to 3. I forget now, 4 or 5 in that 4 or 5 range. I don't, because that's everywhere across the country. It's a standard rate across the country. So when we're talking about federal student loans, it's not like you can get a better rate going to Plattsburgh versus Oswego. It's the same. So I don't anticipate, it definitely makes college more expensive. Return on investment would have to be higher, right? Pay it back. But going to be a good value no matter what I'd say. So I don't think we're gonna have a big impact yet. I mean, if it keeps going up and up, start seeing those 7s, 8s, and 9s, especially those parent loans more expensive. Anyway, I don't think it's there. There's no way to predict. You know, they really set in July, so it's can't sort of say what's it going to be next year. So,
there's a lot of controversy around the plan to address student loans that people already have out. But that there's no plan in place right now to address the student loans that people are going to have to take.
I thought the federal government had set up a quiet commission looking into that. Saw that in some,
No.
I'm sure I got, looking into what.
Exactly,
The
there's no plan.
situation. Yeah, there's nothing yet.
well, they're supposed to pass a Higher Education Services Act every 5 years. I don't know, we've had one, or something like that. So they're supposed to pass a comprehensive legislative bill. I might be off the time, and
We're supposed to do a lot of things.
Well, certainly.
They are. They are, so the FAFSA is dramatically changing. 24, 25, the expected family contribution, which has been the primary student index for granting need-based aid by the federal government, no longer exists. They have a new index called the Student Aid Index.
Friendlier.
What?
It's supposed to be friendlier.
Friendlier, it's easier. So there, one of the consultants we have thinks, will benefit, maybe we'll have 10-20% more students get a Pell Grant, Pell Grant a little bit easier. We want a chart that says, hey, if your household size is 3 and your family income is this, you go to the max Pell Grant. Or so it'd be a little bit more user friendly. So that's probably the biggest change I'd see coming out 24, 25 is the new FAFSA.
When a student, let's say a first-year student takes an I don't know how this works. That's my question. If a first-year student takes out an unsubsidized loan, let's just say at 3%, is said student locked in for that rate for 4 years, or might it change year to year?
That loan, federal loans are fixed interest rates. Like
Fixed rate. Okay,
Just for that 1 year.
for that 1 year.
So
Right.
student loan, let's say student takes 4 years to graduate, will probably have 4 different sets of loans with 4 different rates.
When you sign.
For each one you sign.
Right.
But it doesn't sound like rates grow exponentially for higher ed.
No,
Subsidized.
they're sensitive to that. I mean, I remember these rates, you're talking to students with there no jobs.
Yeah.
So,
What I'm saying is like a student isn't likely to go from 3% to 10%.
no, those are variable interest rates. Those are federal student loans are not. Private loans, you go out to a bank. Now we may. Normally you have 2 choices now. You get the fixed or the variable rate. Variable rates like a variable mortgage, you get set every year, which are more risky. You see, interest rates are going.
People are still profiting off of student loans. though.
Yeah,
Of course, yes.
Corporate America gets, much lower interest rates. And I think part of what we're looking at too is, I just want to ask this, can you or Ken send us the verbiage for both of these pieces of legislation? I'd be curious to know who the sponsors are and the reality of them getting, it sounds very, in the details with that, but to just go off of Sal's concept, one of the things that I'm concerned about, SUNY Plattsburgh did have an issue with this in the past, and I think it may have corrected itself, was some academic programs were being built into their schedule, particularly the graduate programs, that you had to take summer courses. And you were not getting the same financial aid or the ability to go for it, and you were paying at a higher out of pocket. And I say it because I was in that situation and it wasn't presented early on. So you're kind of going through your academic program, you're like, oh, great. And then they change a course offering, pushed it into the summer program. So you needed a 3-credit course. It was out of a sequence. Now you had to pay for out of pocket and be here during the summer with additional expenses. So knowing that our numbers are grad student influenced, I'd be curious what the impact of that is as well.
So there was a program a little while ago that was causing some problems. Starting in the summer. That no longer starts in the summer. Correct. So summertime, the aid normally happens in summertime. You get a Pell Grant in the summer now if you're undergraduate, right? Students have usually exhausted their entire loan limits normally in the fall and the spring semester. Summer's the last semester in the financial aid year, academic year. So they've already used their max student loans. Let's say your first year, 500 or a grad student. You don't have any student loans to cover your summer bill. That's your main way.
And I know some things are changing and how I'm kind of pulling it back into this legislation. I'm always concerned that we all know this, we've heard this for a while, that SUNY will find its way to make sure that it gets its fair share from the pot, right? So if we're systemizing this and we're doing online or various things, I want to make sure that our students are protected and can use the available resources of Pell, et cetera, in such a way that truly becomes beneficial. And that's what I just want to say the language. I'm not expecting.
I always encourage when new programs are developed.
Yep.
Somewhat financially, early in the early in the development process to make sure, there's certain things, certificates to have to meet certain criteria so that we, maximize students' aid, not trying to create a situation, like you said, in the summer program, which left students sort of not the same ability to pay. I always encourage that.
Yeah, I agree
On that,
with Mike.
those were nursing loan legislation. So our nursing loans, our default rate for our nursing loans is like less than 0.5%. Like, I'm not really
Sure.
You said nursing students, they graduate, they're all already employed by now.
Right.
No concern about nurses. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's right.
I think
Anna had a question.
The same, my question is almost the same as his question. So I'm okay.
The information about the bills, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So just one piece on the nursing simulation one, significance is that SUNY is on this. This bill has, or a bill like it has been around in past sessions. What it provides for basically is 30% of clinicals can be met by the use of simulators. Right now in Europe, that's 0. Some states have as high as 50%. Some of them Jones did sign on last year as a co-sponsor of that. But SUNY has made this a priority. They mentioned it at that call. They put out a press release on it, and they've said basically execute the budget allocation from the state on that. This is their top priority for that, because it's not just hearing the cost, but obviously that would allow for nursing students. We'll get that out to you.
Christina had a question.
Going back to the changes that are coming to the FAFSA for 2024 and 2025, I know one of the major ones is that they're no longer giving a discount for having more than one student in college or university. So have you determined the impact that could potentially have going
So,
forward? For
Right, so let's
family?
say past year EFC was $30,000. And then you have one in college, that's your EFC. You get 2 in college, each student's was 15,000. That's going away. No, NASFA has what do they call it? Simulation, which we can upload our data, all 22, see how it impacts.
Okay,
It just fixed it. It was broken for a while, so. So that's one of my goals by the end of May to sort of do a study. We also sort of our need-based grants, which we started as an EFC threshold of 15,000. So we have to convert that to whatever the equivalent would be in student aid. So I do plan on doing that, hopefully by beginning of summer. I'll bet a little simulation done to see what the impact would be. But they think more students are going to get Pell. Everything suggests that more students will get Pell. Some students will lose Pell, but most of, especially at Plattsburgh, students will benefit on average.
well, and that's where my concern was, because I know that we have sometimes a higher at-risk population and so how that would.
Well, they also, so the income doesn't matter. So I guess, let's say parents make 30,000, student made 15,000. Past that student might not get Pell because they made that $15,000. Now, I don't know the exact numbers. If the parent meets that income threshold, they will ignore the student's income. Okay. So that's beneficial too.
Dr. Newton, do you have any updates on your searches? I know you have 2 interim vice presidents right now, what the path forward is and kind of the timeline. That was something that we talked about a lot.
Sure, actually, there are multiple searches going on, so I'll just sort of work. We had a dean candidate, number 3 today for the School of Business and Economics. In fact, ironically, and I won't get off track here, Michael, but the conversation that this particular dean candidate spoke to today was affordability and return on investment. And one specific aspect was comparing this person's the dean at Clarkson, comparing Clarkson tuition to SUNY Plattsburgh tuition, 7,000 versus 55,000. Now they do discount it at Clarkson, but I think to your broader question, Sal, was more of what level of debt do our students leave here with, and how does that debt get I guess serviced as those individuals move through their careers. And we likely have some data that we can share in terms of the number. I've heard it bounce anywhere between 20 and 22, but Todd, do you have a more recent number?
So on average, students who come here as a first year, they graduate more like $28,000.
Okay.
3 out of 4 graduate with loan debt, so 25% have no debt. 3 out of 4 graduate. It's about $300 a month for 10 years. Our loan default rate is at historically low levels for those loans. Somewhat inflated because students have, during COVID, they weren't forced to pay back their loans, so we get those balance, but our loan default rate's really good. So, meaning that's a negative way to look at it, but all of our students appear to be getting jobs, not all, very small proportion.
So that's a connection to that. The VP searches, the VP for enrollment management and student success is technically it's full throttle right now. We have an ad that's been posted. It's now out in the world of potential candidates. Is it AGB that's helping us with that? What's the company that's
Academic Search.
Academic Search is doing it? Okay, so that particular position profile is now sitting. We're looking for a response by March the 13th at this point. March 14th. So, and then the committee will then begin to work on the applications. And then the goal is to have the person identified and in place either July 1st or August 1st. And Corey and I are in conversations about the transition date for that as well. So that's the plan for that. The other VP search that has not started yet is the position that Todd is holding at this moment as the interim. The plan for that is to organize the committee as we hit towards the end of this semester and have it kick off in the fall of 2023, and then do the hire for throughout the fall. Find the next VP for our campus. Search for our Office of Institutional Effectiveness, which is a very important search. That in the next 2 weeks, I believe we have candidates.
Week of February 28th, 3 finals.
And what was that for?
Office of Institutional Effectiveness is basically our data person.
Yeah, sure. And then I think each of the VPs can tell you specifically about individual hires that are going on. I can just, as I look at Corey is involved with the Director of Admissions search. Allison has several searches going on with respect to the Truth, Racial Healing and Transformation Center. I know that, for example, Todd has got some searches involved in various areas, whether it's the business and finance area or the HR area. So there are a lot of searches going on. And, we publish a vacancy list for our campus in terms of the positions, the titles, and the value of those positions. And that's almost like looking at the stock market in terms of the numbers that are present. But I think the last time it came through, it was somewhere between $5 and $5.5 million of vacant positions. I mean, am I overestimating, or is it? Yeah, but it's a large number of position vacancies on the campus. So.
Hey,
Last question back to the executive budget. The 3% tuition increase, was it an up to 3% or was it a hard 3%?
Actually, there's 2 numbers that were put up there: a hard 3% for the comprehensives,
Yep.
and 6% for the big 4. So if you're lucky enough to be at Stony Brook or Albany or Buffalo or Binghamton, they're in the mix for a 6%. Now, and in fact, I think they were using the term in our call of differential tuition model for the system. I don't know how that works in terms of if you were transferring from one institution to another, I think there's all kinds of issues around differential tuition. But I think if it, what I want to make sure is that we remain affordable to students in the state of New York. And there may be, I'll say, more clever ways of supporting the campuses that doesn't require putting a higher financial burden on our students. But I think that's an important piece to consider. Ken, are you?
Yeah, just one thing on that, to the reality of that, from the Zoom call and other conversations, pretty clear that there's going to be legislative resistance to that, and SUNY's pretty much, even though it's in the governor's budget, tactically what they're trying to focus on is to have base support from the state that would offset what that increase would be, whether that would apply to the 6% that the university centers would get. I don't know, that's a bigger number. But there's an understanding that's probably the reality. Yeah, the chairman.
Yeah.
But if what did the chancellor say something about yes and more or something? What he's working. So
Yeah, the trade-off, it will be interested to see if, like you said, if they scrap a hard 3% and say, well, allow up to 1.5%, or if they just scrap it together. They come back and say, okay, we'll up your base aid. Yeah. The dog and pony show of budget negotiations.
But again, there's the broader conversation is around what does affordability look like for a student who's living in the state of New York, and I know that as a campus we are very adept at looking at financial need and what financial aid looks like. The special number is the EFC of 0. A student who has an EFC 0 has the capacity to draw the most available financial aid that's out there. But in my experience, even if you take the full amount that's available to you in order to meet the estimated cost of attendance, and that's everything from food and shelter, housing, books, and tuition, you still need to work part-time 15 to 20 hours a week, every week of the semester, every semester you're enrolled. So not only are you a full-time student and worried about being able to meet your financial obligations, you have a full-time career outside of the campus, or if you're lucky, and we really push this, an on-campus job. And we have hundreds and hundreds of students who fall into that category. So students have an unmet financial need as well, that they have to go to work for a boss who may not be as accommodating for them to have to go do a midterm or have an assignment. So again, the more that we can do in another area, and that's the advancement part of this campus, as we elevate the amount of donors in providing financial support for our students, we lower the amount that those students have to work extra. So to just imagine, if you are a student that's in an EFC of 0 and you have to work every week, imagine getting 2 weeks off during the semester because your scholarship and financial aid from the campus went up by that amount. 2 weeks is a huge amount of time in the life of a student. It could actually mean you can go on spring break, because you don't have to work during the week that you're here over the 17th of March. So
I was just going to add, obviously, and we also have to have conversations with our multicultural students, our BIPOC students on campus, and our first gen students, because many of these students were contributing significantly to the home before they went to college.
Yep. And
some of them, even when they work their work study jobs, they're still contributing back home to their families. And so, I think Todd and I talk about this all the time, and it's very helpful because sometimes getting a parent to sign on to a loan when they already have loans of their own and they trying to make ends meet is very difficult. And sometimes it's easier for these young people to just figure they're going to go home for the holiday and not come back.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to having conversations and just talking to students and talking to families about how they can sort of match things up is extremely important. So.
Thank you, everybody. We'll move into the division Q&A. And hopefully everybody had an opportunity to read the divisional reports, and we'll start with the report from our provost, Anne.
Thank you.
Do you want to highlight some things, or do you want people to just start asking you questions? How would you like to?
I think just Q&A. I mean, President Ignetti prepared us by saying it's kind of a flipped classroom model, which is sharing the info ahead of time so that people can have a look at it and answer any questions.
Any questions about the academic affairs reports or any comments?
There's one new item that just came in Friday, I think, which is our nutrition program was just reaccredited for 8 years, which is awesome. 8 years is a long reaccreditation, and also it was not contingent on any changes.
Great. Good.
Happy about that.
Question when did Steve Dana retire? That went way over my head. I missed that. Did anybody else know that?
I'm sorry, I was.
Steve Dana retired from the branch campus.
Oh, it might have been June 1 or something like that.
Okay.
He's still staying engaged down there. He
Uh-huh.
sees himself first and foremost as a teacher. So he's been teaching down at Queensberry. And he's also, he's so connected with public school systems that he's been hired as a consultant for some different projects. At first, he said he was really going to retire and do nothing for at least a year, and that lasted about a month.
That's not his style.
Pass on your reading to him.
Well, I have to tell you that I feel partly responsible for bringing Steve to SUNY Plattsburgh, because when that position opened, I worked with him through our local BOCES for a lot of years. And he said, would you sit down with me and tell me about the college? And so we had a lunch and he got hired, and he's great, and he'll be missed down there, I'm sure. Anything else jump out at anybody from the academic affairs report?
I had 3 questions, and thank you to all the vice presidents for comprehensive reports. It's been great. Really kind of a wide variety on the spectrum, and this one kind of cross-pollinates. There's the conversation of having Clinton Community College students back on campus.
Yep.
So it's kind of a combined thing. Will they be required to get meal plans? So that's a benefit to the students that are going to be, that are,
On campus,
so they're not just taking housing. but
they'll be
they're gonna be-
just, they'll be like a normals.
That's great.
From a housing perspective, they have to.
Yeah, that's great. And the only reason I brought it up is I saw it in your note in the agreement. The other question they had was the hiring of 2 faculty members for School of Business and Economics. I'm assuming those are tenure track positions.
Yes.
That's great. And I'm kind of previewing this to all the VPs. What's the share? Because I noticed in a lot of the different reports that it seems like every division is being kind of allocated a share to cut from the permanent. What is yours and what have you met so far? Because that seems to be like the ever presenting looming blooming.
Sure. Yeah, I have that document here. Basically, for academic affairs, it's 4,069,361. And we have identified 278,081. One thing I think it's important to know that's unique about academic affairs compared to all the other divisions is that I have an obligation for shared governance that is much stronger than the other divisions. I can't just make decisions that, eliminate this. It has to go through a process of conversation with the faculty. So we have been working very closely. Todd's been terrific, and Megan Renadette, project director, and providing me with a lot of data. And I'm taking every single thing to my team to see what we can work with. First thing we worked on was foundation monies, which was a suggestion of Megan. It wasn't very fruitful because they are small figures and they are specifically allocated for particular reasons, not money that we can just sweep. And in some cases, like the Bureau, the Center for Behavioral Health, for example, those monies are essential for running the autism program, the Alzheimer's program, Alzheimer's care, and so on. So that is not going to work very much for us. The second thing we looked at was adjuncts, and we know that we have to reduce the usage of adjuncts. That's a place where we can recoup some money, and primarily in the School of Arts and Sciences, which is our biggest school. And Dean Meg Pearson, who's new, did that this spring, and I think we had about $53,000. It's gone up and down because some of these classes are labs and some of them are regular classes, but essentially what it meant was that faculty who might have been going to get extra service, did not have extra service. Adjuncts who were going to teach courses did not teach courses. And, you know, it was a difficult project, but an important one that we will be continuing with. Still, what we're working on, lecturers, we're doing an analysis of all the lecturers. And the last thing is to think about, my deans are doing this now, what are the absolutely essential academic searches that we need to run beginning next August, because that that salary money can't be permanently cut because we'll need it a year later in August to start those people. But then what is the remaining amount? And some of this can be temporary cuts, some of it can be permanent cuts. But there's a piece of this also, you know, beyond shared governance that I think it's really important for the College Council to understand as well, which is that we've already cut $6 million from academic affairs. All the divisions have cut, but this is the delivery of our curriculum. And if we get to a point where we are cutting numbers of faculty members so that students cannot complete their curriculum in 4 years, or they come here and have a negative experience. Right now, you know, our classes are mostly of a regular size, but if we were forced to a position where we're having 50 or 60 students and all kinds of more lower level classes, that's word of mouth. And our enrollment suffer, which is also tuition generation. So that's another piece of it that my team is juggling. We're working really hard. You probably heard or know that we deactivated philosophy this past fall, which was not any kind of popular decision. There were between 3 at one point and 8 majors and students in that major for at least the last decade. So that's a decision that we're not going to hire. I'm not going to approve hiring of additional philosophers to keep that program going when we need to invest those lines where we invest them in programs that have possibility of growing. And then you saw, I think, at the opening of my report about Gray Consulting, and we have our first meeting this Wednesday with the president and other individuals from cabinet and from admissions. And they're going to help us, I think, by looking very closely at our current academic portfolio, but their specialization is helping us see what are the emerging areas where we could build new programs. Again, that requires more faculty. But that could also bring us a real uptick in numbers.
Thank you.
Yes,
I was wondering if you just tell us just this, how is the strength of the Center for the Study of Canada? And secondly, you highlighted a Dr. Jean-Philippe who's coming to speak on African-American culture. I was wondering, is he talking about the African-American culture in Canada? Is it what?
No, I believe it's in the United States. I mean, internationally, there are scholars. It doesn't matter really in some ways what their country is, depending on the institution where they got their doctorate. They may have studied very much in American.
From there.
Yes.
And coming. Oh.
But you asked about the strength of the Center for the Study of Canada. I think it's very strong. I would tell you that that's largely due to Chris Kirky's unbelievable work, because he gets, just in the last year, he got another large grant. He gets federal grants, he gets Canadian grants. It's not money that's coming out of the college's pocket by and large, except for his salary and administrative assistant I think he has over there. But I know he would like to grow more interest in the study of Canada among our students. It's pretty small number of students who study there, but it is unique. It is unique to us, and we compete with some, you know, top-notch institutions. I think we are the only SUNY system campus that has this, and we compete with Ivy League institutions as well.
So it's going.
Yeah.
The other topic I'd ask you about is the Lake Champlain Research Institute. We're still healthy. I know there's grants again that came through, and I see the boat.
Amazing. Yeah.
Well, the gentleman who's the mechanic on it lives near me. And so the boats from SUNY Plattsburgh are there, and I see them, and I love the whole idea of the program. But so we're doing well.
Yes, and that's in collaboration with UVM. All the work we do on Lake Champlain's in collaboration with UVM. I would say, you know, Tim Myhook, who's the force behind that. I was in the library the other day and I hadn't noticed this before, but his, you know, his picture's up on the wall. He was one of our distinguished faculty members, which is incredibly difficult thing to qualify for. So I wasn't surprised when I saw his picture up there, and learned it just a week ago about this new enormous grant that he's been given. He does a great job with a small set of graduate students, actually, who are constantly out with them, collecting samples and doing hands-on research.
Oh, yes, again, I would love to get on the boat.
Well, Sid, we can make that happen. And in fact,
Obviously, I live on it. I have my whole life and it's just so important to me, but.
Tim likes to take people out.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a great field trip.
Yeah.
College
She
council.
definitely have the college council
yeah,
go out sometime in warmer weather.
well, there's, as we spoke earlier about the possibility of a retreat. When I went for a float on Tim's boat, we did it off of the Valcour dock.
Yep.
And so you can combine nautical opportunity with conversation. But Tim received $850,000 to purchase a new boat.
Yeah.
So,
People who work on the boat talk a lot about the program. By the way, they're amazing.
Yeah.
And so that's how I heard about that.
yeah, it's great. It's great. You get to float. I mean, they have got a permanent buoy location just out by there's a what I guess is a small island adjacent to the Valcour Island. And you just stop there and they can actually lower their information, their probes down and collect information about, I guess it's phytoplankton and, oxygen, all that good stuff, and temperature.
It is amazing. Thank you.
Other questions? I have a question about the chat. Whatever. it is. Gee. So this workshop is that designed to help teachers redesign assignments to avoid, and
Yes.
is it a big concern here on campus right now?
It is a big concern. It's a big concern nationally. There was an immediate reaction nationally that this, and Sandra can speak to this as well, that there would be a barrage of cheating and academic dishonesty. And a lot of institutions are revising their academic honesty plans because of this. At my last meeting with the other provost, because when the president had his meeting last week, provost had a meeting with the SUNY interim provost. She said that SUNY is going to organize, because we asked for this, for all the faculty, a kind of expertise session, people coming in and talking about ChatGPT. I think that, it's important, and I know that Jessamine Newhouse, our Center for Teaching Excellence director, feels this way, that if we design our assignments carefully, and if we're asking students to do, original thinking, not more canned thinking about something coming out of a textbook, this should not pose to be an enormous problem for us. But I think it's going to be like everything else. It's going to take a little bit of time. Sandra, did you want to say anything about that?
From the faculty perspective, it's so new that it's hard to know how to deal with it. And I've certainly been doing a lot of reading, trying to figure out how do you spot it. A lot of the assignments that I do are hands-on because I teach research methods, statistics, things like that. So it's not something that they can really use. So like I have a research project that I have them do, and part of it involves a lit review. And so as I'm gearing up for that this semester, it's like, okay, how do you spot that? I mean, there's interesting things that I am just reading about it that say that the program makes up references. So it writes things that sound good, but then it refers to something that's not actually real. Look up the article name and the author and it doesn't exist. So it's just, there's so much to learn. And I think a lot of faculty are we're not quite sure. We know we have to deal with it, but we're still trying to figure out how do we deal with it? How do we spot it? How do we help students to realize why it's a problem?
Dean Samard, dean of our Education, Health and Human Services School, she's already been invited by the local superintendents who are saying they don't want to just say, hands off, you can't have anything to do with this. They want to say, how can we see this as a tool, educational tool that may actually help in our classrooms? So I'm happy that she's working with them, because if we have those connections between the PK to 12 classroom setting, and we know how students are being taught there, then we can do something that's aligns with that.
Always a good idea not to tell kids you can't do something, because then they will do something.
You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it also affects possibly applying for college. If you have to write an essay, you can have somebody do it for you.
Well, we'll finally get some good writing assignments out of our. That's terrible, Heidi. It's in public education. Okay, well, good. Thank you for that. I just was wondering if it had, sort of,
It's pretty radical, isn't it?
yeah, it's scary.
Yeah.
It is scary. Okay, so Allison, did you
Yes.
want to highlight a few things?
A few things. And these posters are really going around specifically for college council members, but I have some extra smaller ones if it's anyone on campus that one. We've been promoting through the digest, but at the time of our reports, capital did not go in with the reports. So I just wanted to highlight a few things. One is the very first program that we had as a kickoff was actually with Saranac Central School District, so the elementary and the high school, which we actually facilitated a DEI workshop for 100 of their teachers. The superintendent was there. And we're seeing some similar things. I referenced some of it in my report in terms of just the racial slurs, the blatant disregard that some people have for other people, which is coming out and what some people categorize as freedom of speech, but it's really harm to the community. One of the things I can say, we actually had a recent graduate who is now teaching in the school district. She had just graduated in December. And so I'm going to echo a lot of what was said in terms of the school districts just really needing graduates to accept these jobs on the part of the staff. And in that particular workshop, we actually had only 2 employees at the Saranac School District who identified as employees of color. And so if you could imagine, just the passion that I think the school district has to talk about diversity and equity issues, even though their staff is not really reflective of a diverse workforce. So I think the message is still important.
As the North Country goes,
Yes.
that's pretty diverse. I mean, it's so many North Country pre-K-12 buildings are 100% white.
Yes.
You just have to write that report for a school every year.
Yeah.
Trying to justify why we didn't have more diversity.
Yeah. Few other things I wanted to highlight. One is the program that we're actually hosting February 21st, which is a collaboration with Greek Life. And this is a DEI summit. One of the reasons I wanted to highlight it is because we actually have a student intern who's actually through sociology, and Dr. Rizak was really pivotal in helping us to secure the internship. But really our goal with the Greek Life Summit is not only to focus on DEI, but also to have all of our fraternities and sororities to map out themselves as part of how they will grow DEI and the strategic next plan in terms of things they're actually going to be focusing on this year. And that is part of the students project to really work with the organizations who will provide some coaching to them for them to be able to really focus on that. And then other programs I wanted to highlight are that week, but it's the program on February 21st, which is more of a Mardi Gras celebration. And then the program on February 23rd, which is a book discussion and a soul food dinner, because one of the things that we hear a lot of times in working with academic advising, and some of the things that we see in the academic success coaching with Travis's work, is that a lot of times when students leave, they might leave because they miss home or they feel like they want to go home. And some of it has to do with just things like meals and cooking. And so this is a collaboration with Chartwell's. The menus are really student driven. It's really used as an opportunity to get students engaged and to just promote some of those collaborative relationships. Questions about my report?
Just wanted to add that I noticed in a couple of things in your report that you were involving, you're trying to anyway the community, and I think that is so important. And I would add the restaurants, pubs, and bars, if you could get them I have a nephew who owns one, so feel free to call me. I'll get him on. Right?
Yeah,
That would be the one place I think I personally have heard. Not. First layer of skin, but yeah. So to get them to be able to spot it with their employees and.
Community is extremely important. I would say right after the MLK celebration, I'm gonna focus on Stan and Chris Ransom because they actually the very next day in my report, I mentioned at the Truth and Racial Healing Center, we hosted a National Day of Racial Healing. And they actually showed up, but we also had other people from the community. We've since had people from the community attend the Healing Circle programs. We've since had people from the community promote and advertise the events for Black History Month that we're doing on campus. This is the other reason why we chose to focus on diversity newsletter so that we could circulate it digitally on campus, but also to have some copies that people can put in to the library or to restaurants. And then Ken and I, this is one of the things that's listed as part of the SUNY Central funding, is that we've had a preliminary conversation with Joel from the Chamber of Commerce about possibly even running like an equity, what we're doing with our equity advocate program on campus with human resources, affirmative action, and DEI, is to possibly do something for the community, just to look at unconscious bias and the ways that people might be doing some hiring or furthering habits when they don't even realize they're doing it. So
the Restaurant Association, the downtown one, it's quite active. So.
In that spirit, I love the fact that you're using the CS shuttle drivers.
Oh,
for training,
yes.
because a lot of times if a student is going to have an incident, you know, in various locations in our mall, and they may be talking with their friends, you know, the driver may overhear that. Just as one example, there's some assumptions, but just in general, I think that's very creative and a good way to do that. So, you know, and your speech again was phenomenal. It was.
Sid said about the community, has your office identified organizations in this community that can support your office's work? Or when it comes to the community, it is your office?
So we are right now doing capacity building. So I think when we mentioned like search processes and what the president mentioned is extremely important for us to sort of build out our staff. But we're making a lot of linkages, not just with organizations. I mean, I would even say churches are organizations, because even after the MLK event, we had several churches who have reached out to us. So whether or not how they conduct, for example, Bible study programs. I just had a conversation with someone about this at St. John's Church, and even the text that they're looking at for Lent. So again, this is just a very recent conversation that I've had. So I think part of what I've tried to do in my very new role is to just see where some of that support is coming from.
Right.
I've also, I think it's listed in my report, but certainly in the newsletter, is that I've been participating in listening sessions too. So just to travel to student groups, to travel to community areas, to travel to academic departments, also to listen to ways that we can partner. So part of it for me is just listening to people and seeing what some of those linkages may.
Totally. I think a lot of times students look similar to the college as problem. There needs to be a solution here when there are community and support groups off campus that can help amplify a message, help build healing and unify different constituencies, but also I think maybe give a third party, just a conversation and talk for that sort of third party view. So I love that. Your report on the on your section on bias incidents and reports on campus, there's your last point about bringing 2 policies before committees. Do those policies intertwine with the student handbook at all? And if they don't, okay. Awesome.
Yes. Yes, because for example, we have a hazing policy. So students, I can say this because students just had a club training on Friday and our office worked with students to give them information about Title IX. And then also just diversity, equity, and inclusion. So for example, we have a hazing policy, which lays out what happens when organizations, whether or not it's a student club or Greek life organization, hazes someone. But we don't have, because of state law, a hate speech policy. And part of what our direct team has been doing is, and this is a very specific example, so where we had a student who was not our student, but was the visitor of a student who was alleged to have shouted out a racial slur at one of our students. And this happened from a residence hall. And so did we have a policy that covered using that racial slur? No, but what we did is instead of us dropping it, right, we strategized that the person had violated the quiet hours policy. The person who invited them to campus violated the visitor policy. And so what we're doing is we're looking at linkages to other policies. And so our goal is that our posture this year will be to focus on a harmful speech. And what does it mean when we lead in with our values to let people know what some of our goals are in terms of speech? And in a fraternity council, Corey, through her work in her area, we are looking at against hate speech sort of campaign that we'll be working on this year. I don't know if you want to add something else.
But I mean, a lot of the cases fall in that line of where is free speech, which we embrace. We want more speech, but when it is hurtful, not necessarily provocative,
Right.
we can intervene.
Right.
What do we do with that? So
Right.
we're not doing nothing. That's where we're
Mhm.
not doing nothing. We're doing as much as we can, trying to engage in conversations, educate.
That's why I made the point about sort of weaving this into the student handbook as a mechanism for holding kids accountable, for their actions. And, not just focusing on the punishment side of it, but as we know, there are lines where we can both punish and also work to educate. and
Yes.
Grow their mindset a little bit, right? So.
Yes.
Clubs, we have a little more to hold them. So
Right.
I think more success of
Yeah.
infiltrating with clubs. With individuals, it gets a little tricky sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you. And it's nice to meet you.
Thank you, Allison. Next is Corey. Do you have, we talked about enrollment, things like that. Do you have anything you want to add? Does anybody have any more questions for Corey?
Happy to answer questions. I'll say that enrollment is always a moving target. And since I gave you this report, we've changed a couple of critical things with our goals for next year. The original goal was 1435 for undergrads and 265 for grads. We've shifted that to 1410 and 290. And that really is where we've been trending. Graduate programs have been growing. Undergraduate is more challenging. We'll continue to overshoot as much as we can, but we think that's more realistic in terms of hitting that 1,700 target. Again, a moving target. So the president said we're trending 50-ish ahead. We're probably less than that now. That keeps compressing back more to reality, but we're still a good 30% ahead of where we were last year for applications and acceptances. So the team has processed more than 1,000 more applications than last year's. They are continuing to push hard, doing a lot of work with EOP right now, making sure we hit our goals for EOP, for the CAP program, and focus not just on the recruitment side of getting the numbers in, but doing a lot of high touch right now that we think will help with retention once those students arrive here in the fall. So trying to build relationships in a more meaningful way before they even pay their deposit to Congress. That's been a big. In US budgets, our share is $509,000 and change of the cut. We are about identified around 445. To go, we're waiting on one potential retirement that would have a big impact.
I have a question for somebody else does. This is kind of a general question. I've read a lot about, many schools are in the same position we are in that, enrollment is down. for a lot of places, particularly in state schools as opposed to private schools. At Plattsburgh, we're spending a lot of time talking about making it, you know, with student loans and that attractiveness, but do you think most students, from what I've read, are not going to college because they don't think it's worth it? And do we work hard enough on making, say, publicizing our success story so they'll know it's worth it? Say, for example, it's kind of a funny line. I'll mention they were talking about Harvard. Somebody said that's a meal ticket for life. So it really doesn't make any difference how much you pay for it because, yeah, it's worth it. And or if you say have a degree from MIT or something, you just, like I say, it's a meal ticket for life. And obviously, Plattsburgh is a little bit different position, but we have had tremendous number of people here that have been inordinately successful, made, you know, we have accountants, lawyers, judges, everybody. Supervisor Cashman, for example.
Wow.
But anyway.
Get your checkbook out, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Do you think they feel that, or do you think they feel that it's just another state school and maybe they're not the payoff?
Well, I think there's two parts to that. So part of it is our admissions team talking about what's life going to look like on the other side for you? Yes, they are. We're actually getting some support from the Alumni Association, from the foundation right now to create a recruitment video that will highlight current students talking about why Plattsburgh was the right choice for them, but also recent alums talking about what did Plattsburgh do for them. But I think the bigger question, is one, cabinets and the provost has shared some articles about that perception out there. Do you even need a degree? It's fine. We're all up against that. Certainly part of our value prop messaging. Yeah, we're part of a bigger message that we value higher education.
Well, our president is, touting the great jobs and the training, in middle America. He's out there now talking about jobs that, you can potentially get with a high school diploma. So we're going to be up against that.
Right. But for us in this particular part of the world, the jobs that make a difference are healthcare, education, entrepreneurship, and business. And it's hard to get it to be a nurse without a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree. It's real tough, I think. It's tough to be a teacher in K-12 without a 5-year, 4-year +1 program. It's again, so the value proposition that you're asking about, Jim, is important. We cannot ever stop talking how important it is to have a success with college. And I think part of the rhetoric is shifting. We heard it in the State of the Union. Not everybody needs to go to college. That's always been true, but gosh darn it, going to college opens doors. And so part of the message, even when we bring 8th graders to this campus, is this is an opportunity to create a door for yourself. And you can choose to walk through it if you want to, but don't block it. Don't not go because you don't think you're college material. And that's.
Yeah, if you get a look at the federal statistics still, over a lifetime, people with post-grad income I'm talking about here, with 4-year degree, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, it is just there. Now, obviously, there are people who go into business right out of high school and got what they had and make it, but they are very few and far between. And I'm glad you brought this up because I've been hearing it like everybody else reports, people saying, I used to deal with that all the time. Why aren't you sending more kids to local tech school? Well, first of all, I don't send them. I'm a school counselor. I'm not the director of their life. And second of all, there are kids that want that and need that, and that's wonderful, but you need to show them all the reality. And right now, the reality is it's angering me, obviously. It's getting fuzzy. If you have the ability and the desire, then you might want to think about getting more education. And I was always a proponent of, I don't care what you're going to be doing. You need at least 14 years of education. I don't care if you're a plumber, if you're working on the electric vehicle, if you've decided you're going to run the crane. I have a nephew who runs a crane. You want to see the inside of the 100-foot crane and the computer system he has, physics he has to do, and I'm done. But anyway, so I hope that our college at every opportunity does emphasize that. It's a little pushback No, and you don't want to look like we're angering the powers that be, then again, maybe that's a good thing. You know,
I would guess that our location works against us. I mean, I know both the President and I are on the TDC board. And in this area, manufacturing is a huge employer.
big salary.
Right, exactly. And, you know, Clinton Community College is trying to address that by coming up with different certification programs that people can go through and have, you know, in 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever. I don't know that the SUNY Plattsburgh is built to address that issue, but I think that our location is where we are and where more manufacturing companies are building up around us. That a lot of people graduating from here can't see themselves, if they are going to go to college, staying here to go to college and then having that opportunity.
You'd be surprised the percentage of students out of the high schools here, and I can speak for Clinton County only because I used to do that stat.
Right, but I'm saying that's one of the things that you're faced with as a
Yes.
student, right?
Yes.
And so I think that we might have that a little bit against us.
And what I used to get when I went to all the meetings of the factory owners and business owners were, please send us this. Student understands the mathematical calculations at Norsk on the machine. And by the time they finish, I sit there going, those are the kids that have gone to college, okay? Or have at least done enough college prep. 2-year college, I can get those for you. But I can't tell you coming out of high school, that student can run your computer that is. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that now it's
Yes,
trying
you
to
are. I
be
know
addressed
you
in a different
Yes.
way.
yes, it does.
And I don't know how we address that here, right? I know Clinton Community College is trying to address that. I don't know how we can do that here, other than getting people to realize that teaching and the nursing is huge.
Yeah, and all of those businesses you're referring to need someone who has run the departments and, you know, so it's a way of moving those employees up. Which is where we used to always discuss with them.
Can I just toss out one other thing, because and thank you again for the report. Our athletes are such a great recruiting tool as well. They're in communities, people see them in our newspapers and stuff. One of the things that I was reminded of is when the men's hockey team, and I think it was a combination between probably Student Success and IA, having Coach Emery back, is we celebrate the wonderful historic gains that the men's teams have made over the years. There is yet to be a woman's number retired at this college. And it disappoints me immensely that we do not have a woman's number, and not that should be like the hash mark of, like, you know, the objective by itself. But the women's hockey team, for example, national champions, and will probably capture that title soon enough. You'll have a ring soon, you know, at like, just it's this type of stuff that if you come to a D3 school, you should be able to say, my number one day could be among that level of legacy and stuff like that. So it's a little bit different, it's a little bit muted, but just wanted to throw that out there. Get off my soapbox.
I think that'll be happening soon.
Write it down.
So you let
I saw Ann go.
Yeah.
Yes, I never even thought about that.
But to Michael's point, you know, Kathleen Kiralis, she's one of our phenomenal track athletes.
Yep.
Her name is still enshrined, and whenever Kathleen would come back to campus, she says, I showed my daughter my name on the wall. I mean, there's tremendous power in that recognition in that time.
So.
I'm always talking with Heather Haskins in marketing and admissions about doing stronger, more constant profiles of our alums. And I know Ann is involved in this as well, but a lot of institutions will have, you know, regularly just pictures go up on the homepage. Class of 2020, student's name, where they're from, what they're doing now, and they give testimonials to what the institution meant to them. I think
Well, that's a good point. There's university, I think it's something Point in North Carolina.
High Point.
High Point. I mean, the ads, it's one ad, and it's really driving me crazy. I watch Squawk Box every morning, so it's kind of like, but when they say this is what our student, not what they say, this is what they're doing. That's very powerful. This is what they're doing. They're, you know, that's a big deal.
Thank you. Thanks, Corey. Todd, we did talk about financial aid and things like that. Is there anything else you want to highlight? Anybody have questions about the budget and the budget process?
Since we've been talking about graduate educations programs, so one reason why our tuition revenue is higher than what we thought this year, our head count is higher than expected this year, even though it's down from last year, it's better than we thought, is our online graduate education program. They saw a big increase in the fall from the previous year, so they're very popular. It seems like people are sitting home working, getting an education degree. Budget forecast is better than the last fall. Running out of cash reserves, at the end of 23-24, they can extend that out another year. Cash savings through open positions, savings in our IGA budget.
Do you have any large capital projects going on? I know DASNY is a particular type of funding, but outside of like the DASNY structure, any large renovations or capital improvements and stuff that are gonna kind of pull on the budgetary?
No, those large ones tend to be funded by SUNY, like if we get the Red Coat Welcome Center. I mean, college CAS, there's a sundowner plan for renovation of Sundowner and a plan for renovation of Halal that we're trying to work out right now. Those are both entering the design phase. And then Halal should be done in August 24, and then we're trying to see if DASNY can do construction for the Sundown. We'll know when that can get done. But that's still on the table right now.
Sundowner is a CAS project, College Auxiliary Services.
Yeah. It's funded by CAS, so they're sort of looking to us.
So they'll bond it through the dormitory authority.
No, it's being funded by Chartwell.
Okay.
Chartwell's pays it, but they rent, so we
They
have
rent.
to manage the
Right.
renovation.
Right.
Chartwell's.
Okay, Anne, institutional affairs. Anybody have questions? You want stuff you want to highlight?
Institutional advancement. Yeah, can I highlight a couple things?
Sure.
Quick? Just because there's a couple events that are on the horizon, I want to make sure the council members have these dates. One of them is really quick. It's we've had a lot of conversation today about the importance of simulated patient education in the nursing program and the opportunities in the future for that experience counting towards clinical education. So right along those lines, on February 20th, the college will be doing a ribbon cutting for the new simulated patient lab. This is a renovation and enhancement of the existing Damianos skills lab. So the Damianos family way back when created the simulated patient lab, and it's been enhanced about $1 million in state money paid for the improvements. And then we also a couple hundred came from the foundation, one for an additional SIM patient, and a very nice gift to support professional development and basically training of the faculty and staff to use the new, because the new patients are pretty incredible. So if you can think about the technology. And also curriculum enhancement. So they're working on a accelerated nursing program. It's probably in your report, and so there's also some funding in that gift to support curriculum redesign in nursing. So it's exciting. February 20th at 4 o'clock is the ribbon cutting. The other thing is the alumni associations working with actually the city of Plattsburgh on a service day project, and that's just starting to take shape. So this would be an opportunity for students, alumni, and friends to participate on April 22nd. It's a Saturday. Basically picking up trash. So that's a service day project. Richard Semler, who we were talking about when I came in, Richard Semler was a graduate of the college who received the Distinguished Service Award many years ago. A life of philanthropy and just incredible commitment to community service. Our service day program that our alumni association runs is named in honor of Richard. So it's the Semler Day of Service. And we're doing a program in Plattsburgh and also in Albany. Hopefully another one in New York City as well. The last date is May 12th, 2023 at 5 p.m. We're honoring Michelle Carpentier for her incredible impact on thousands of students who she's supported either personally or through the Student Support Services operations and EOP for decades. We're talking thousands and thousands of students really that were able to graduate because of her support. I reviewed a proposed schedule with Dr. Yeti and Corey, and Michael, you've been helpful as well, trying to fine tune so that we have the best speakers for that special day. So that's going to be so those are some highlights of new news.
Thank you. Any questions for Anne? Institutional Affairs Report.
Yeah, working on it.
And one question, and I don't know whose purview it falls under, the main SUNY Plattsburgh Facebook page.
Yeah.
Has not been updated in months.
Letter answer,
So-
HACK. We were hacked.
Okay.
So it's being unhacked. We should be up and running very shortly. Yeah.
Hope it wasn't because of me.
Yeah, no, the reason I ask is because social media is
Are down
and
So
so,
we have two social media kind of efforts
Yep.
that are definitely interconnected. So Heather Haskins in Dr. Yeti's office manages the college-wide social media efforts. And then on the alumni side, we have an alumni Facebook
Yep.
presence and an alumni LinkedIn presence, and we do some very specific posting related to alumni, mainly around fundraising.
and then just your portion of the budget, just to be fair.
Yes, so we've identified $80,000 in reductions, which is fulfills our target. The vast majority of those reductions are, much all of it is, we're going to have to reduce the frequency of the Plattsburgh College magazine. That's a publication that we send to all of our graduates twice a year. It's the only thing that so we're currently in a place of looking at how we might reconfigure the magazine. It'll probably, in order to do two issues, it's going to convert more to a newsletter type publication, but I still feel in this day and age, it's incredibly important to get something in people's hands. Everyone has overloaded email boxes. And we're also very much aware that there's certain population that is not online. So we will never touch them. And we also know that this is just being honest. As we all progress, sometimes we reach a point where we stop going online. So even some of my alumni that I've worked with for many, many, many years, who are always really great about reading our online letters, drop off online at some point in their life. So that print publication is great key. So we're looking at how we can change that up. It's a bit of a challenge. We also have a number of staff that have voluntary work reduction schedules. So that's a temporary savings, but it does help.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't answer that question. So we were not identified as an area that had to cut, but we have contributed in the form of cost savings for some searches that were not successful or failed. And so it was more in the form of cost savings. So I didn't answer the question.
I thought you did. Thank you.
Yeah, we 446. So we've identified 446, 120 permanent. I think that one, it's a working draft. I think we found a little bit more permanent recently. We've identified our cut.
Thanks. Thank you all. Moving on. Oh, it's me. I want to just to let you know that Sal and Marty and I met with Dr. Agnetti several weeks ago, just to sort out how the council can be more supportive of campus administration and things that are going on and more in tune with what's going on. And there seemed to, and I think probably because Dr. Agnetti's transition happened during the pandemic, that somehow communication wasn't getting through. We were not communicating well, and we felt that there was a need to really improve our ability to communicate, and so that we're just more aware of things that are going on and identifying ways that we can be more supportive. So I want to thank the vice presidents for giving us the reports. That was one of the things that came out of that meeting and we used to do it and we just stopped doing it over the years. And I think it was really helpful. And I think it resulted in a much better discussion today. And I think that we're all just much more informed than that we would have been if you just read us reports today. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do that ahead of time, and thank you for that. Dr. Agnetti talked about, maybe reinstituting our summer retreat, because one of the things that I think we're missing is the opportunity to get together and engage with each other. Meeting 4 times a year is tough. We talked about the possibility of getting back to maybe doing a lunch before our meetings, just so that we have new council members, we have to get to know each other so that we work more effectively together. So those were things that came out of that meeting. And I appreciate Dr. Agnetti's time for, sitting down and helping us sort of sort all this out. So. Okay, Taiba's not here. Sandra, you're the only one left down at that end. So turn it over to you.
I just wanted to report a little bit on the most recent SUNY University Faculty Senate plenary. We do 3 of them a year. The one in the winter now in January is always going to be held virtually, because the weather is unpredictable enough, and we've done a few in January where we had to leave early, or people were like leaving in a snowstorm, so they decided to just go virtual with those. So that was held just a couple weeks ago. It's always a little harder when we're doing it on Zoom. It is over, we start on a Thursday night and then run all day Friday and part of the day on Saturday. The Thursday night part of it is a chance for each of the different sectors to talk. It's fairly informal. I convene the campus governance leaders on Thursday night. So we have this 2-hour session and so this is like the faculty senate chairs, presiding officers, those sorts of people on campus meet to talk about what's happening on our campuses. Typically, we formulate questions for the chancellor, because the chancellor participates in the meetings. And not surprisingly, a number of the things that are coming up here are things that came out of the CGL, Campus Governance Leader meeting. We talked about things like those in comprehensives who, and again, they cross all sectors. So there's all state ops are represented. So we have the research centers and the comprehensive colleges, the ag and techs, whatever. And but things like the university status using that name, certainly the people at the comprehensives are like, this is a good thing. They're kind of talking about it happening on our campuses. And then there's like somebody from the university center saying, well, this is creating confusion. So it's interesting because we actually do hear those perspectives. We're not just talking to other comprehensives. So we are hearing some of those concerns as well. Most campuses are having the same concerns about enrollment and what that means. They're talking about concerns about the lack of state funding, concerns about, well, if there is a tuition increase, how does that affect our students? So a lot of those things are coming up among campus governance leaders as well. We also talked about concerns of like faculty and staff morale. That's, very common concerns across most campuses. We, as far as sort of planning for the conversation with the chancellor, because he had only been on the job something like 10 days at the time we were meeting, instead of doing fairly pointed questions, which is what we typically do, and for the April meeting, he will have very pointed questions. it was, we were told to do more of an introduction to our group and kind of start a conversation with him. And so the campus governance leaders, as an introduction to what we do, we really focus on the issue of shared governance and meaningful consultation. And really had, instead of really asking direct questions, kind of a conversation with him, which seemed, from my perspective, went well. And I think that the other sector reps that I talked to also seemed to have a good sense from him. He seemed very supportive. He seemed very knowledgeable. We've all encountered, so those of us who've been around the University of Wisconsin administration for a while, have seen a fair number of chancellors over even a relatively short period of time. The impression that I got, and from other people that I talked to at these meetings, we were feeling pretty positive about him as a chancellor, that he seems to have a really good attitude coming in. He's more knowledgeable of SUNY than we necessarily expected in 10 days in. He seemed very supportive of shared governance. My group asked if we could have a meeting with him once he is more settled into the position to talk more about shared governance on how the SUNY system can help to, improve that across all campuses. And he was open to that idea. So it was, a good conversation. I think a lot of us were kind of excited, not knowing when you have a new chancellor coming in, what to think. But I think a lot of us, after those conversations with him, were really feeling very positive about the impact that he can have system-wide. So it's, people are pretty happy that he's coming in. We talked among my group on Thursday night. He had already visited a couple campuses. He had started very quickly visiting campuses and visiting several in a day. And those campus governance leaders who had a chance to meet with them were also feeling very positive. It wasn't because they were being planned so quickly. Sometimes he only met with administration. Sometimes he also met with campus governance leaders. They were going to make sure after that, because it was pointed out that was kind of a concern, that he did actually meet with more than just like a couple administrators and a couple students. So, kind of working out that plan. But so, that again was kind of one of the highlights of the meetings, was that chance to interact with him, to hear from him. We always also hear from the SUNY provost and budget office and that. But that was probably the standout, was just the conversation with the new chancellor.
Questions? Thank you. All right, any other old business? Great, any other new business?
I'll just mention that we have 2 top 10 ranked Division III hockey teams. Both the men and women have, I think, won their respective divisions. I think the women are on top of the Newell and the men are on top of the SUNY. In top 2. No, in terms of the women in the standings for the Newell, though. In any case, we'll be hosting home games for the playoffs, which is great. They'll start, which is wonderful. So, and I think as Corey mentioned, our men's basketball team is on the cusp of the bubble of the SUNY as well. Great. So, is new business.
I will take a motion to go into executive session. Sid, second, Sal. And there won't be any action taken at the end of the session, after which we'll adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.